7th. And in the U.S., Kevin McCarthy was ousted as House Speaker at the beginning of October. And then this incredible event takes place where Speaker Johnson from Louisiana comes out of nowhere, it seems, and is made Speaker of the House. So back in October, we had these events unfolding. And it's just good to keep in mind, basically. These events are just good to just make a mental note of as we go forward talking about this, because I had to do some research on this. So you have the shepherding aspect, you have the retrieving aspect, right? Because whether it's a border collie or a German shepherd, they're both herding dogs, right? They're both in the field with the shepherd. So you have the shepherding aspect, you have the retrieving aspect of the lab. What does it mean to retrieve something? The definition of retrieve is to get or bring something back or regain possession of it. That's the definition of retrieve. And the shepherds, the herding dogs, they protect the flock. So if we look at this, the leaders need to regain possession of what was stolen, or the shepherds need to regain possession of what was stolen and reestablish the covenant between the Lord and the nation. Now, the border collie, because like I said, this dog was either a black lab shepherd puppy or a black lab border collie puppy. Border. What's happening at the border right now? You've got patriots and those that love this nation and those that love God taking a stand at the border to regain possession of, retrieve, what has been taken through this soft invasion of immigration. The collie part, any breed of large dog. Now listen to this. The collie is any breed of large dog developed in Scotland that occur in rough-coated and smooth-coated varieties, have erect ears and a long muzzle. So where does the collie come from? Scotland. What is Donald Trump? The family of Donald Trump, 45th president of the United States and owner of the Trump Organization, is a prominent American family of German and Scottish descent. He is German and Scottish. German Shepherd, Border Collie, Scottish. Now, Psalm 23. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He lets me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still and quiet waters. He refreshes and restores my soul. He leads me in the path of righteousness for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod, shepherding rod, and your staff, they comfort and console me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You have anointed and refreshed my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy and unfailing love shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell forever in the house and in the presence of the Lord. That was the amplified version of Psalm 23. So we have these aspects, right? Border, right? Shepherd, retrieve, to regain possession of. Now, we have something else to talk about, because Patriot Party, I had to go back and find out the history if there was ever such a thing called a Patriot Party. And I'll tell you what I found in a moment. But the Patriot movement needs the Lord and needs the covenant that the Lord made with this nation and needs to reestablish that with the Lord. So the Patriot Party needs the covenant, needs to be changed, that they come into agreement with the covenant of Almighty God. Now, this could also mean that there is going to be some type of party that forms from a group of patriots that will be changed and become something to do with a covenant. Okay, so there could be some aspect of this too, another party rising in this nation and what its name might be associated with. because the covenant must be reestablished. This is crucial for the nation to do this. We have to do what Ezra did, reestablish the covenant with God. Now, I looked up to see if there was ever such a thing as a patriot party. Ever such a thing. This is what I found. 1970, 54 years ago. Dissolved in the mid-1970s, there was a Young Patriots organization whose headquarters was in Chicago, and look at what they stood for initially. Revolutionary socialism, left-wing nationalism, anti-racism, anti-capitalism. And the party flag kind of resembles, in a way, I don't know, maybe the Confederate flag. I don't think totally the Confederate flag, but it has that feel. Now, the strange thing about that flag is it's an X, right? The two pads of the two eclipses from 2017, and that's going to happen in 2024, make an X over the nation. So that's just some interesting thing to note in the middle of this. Now, the Patriot Party was a socialist organization of the early 1970s in the United States that organized poor rural whites in the Appalachian South and Pacific Northwest. The party was formed after a split with the Young Patriots organization. Young Patriot organization membership was drawn from street gangs of Appalachian whites, gangs. In the uptown neighborhood of Chicago, it became politicized after working with the Young Lords, an ethnic Puerto Rican gang, and the African American Black Panther Party. You know why they want to try to smear those who love this nation as patriots? Because they originally started a patriot party to bring socialism into the nation, and they recruited gangs to do it. Gangs in Chicago, Puerto Rican gangs, Black Panther Party, recruited them. So why do they want to smear it now, the liberals? So all of this doesn't come to light and they get called into question why they would do something like this in the first place. Now, this gets dissolved in the mid-1970s, this whole mess right here that I just read. In the 1990s, the Patriot Party became the United Citizens Party. The United Citizens Party was first organized in 1969 in the U.S. state of South Carolina by John Roy Harper II and others. In response to the state Democrats, too, that in the 90s, they changed their name to the United Citizens Party. So they go from Patriot Party in the 70s to United Citizens Party. Oh, we all got to come together. No matter, no matter how we feel, we just gonna have to come under one roof kind of deal. So what I find interesting about this is the more you look at the history of this, you start to understand why the liberals are trying to smear it so bad, that now people are actually, in a way, putting patriotism in its right column. Okay, because patriotism, in a way, should not be associated with socialism and anti-capitalism and all of these other things that are very against our republic. Yes, we have a republic, not a democracy. There's your history lesson for today. We are a republic. We are not a democracy. But what do they say on MSNBC, CNN, and every other news network out there right now that wants to peddle the falsities and the nonsense they peddle? Oh, they're a threat to our democracy. Wrong. We're not a democracy. We're a republic. And right there, once they say that, anything else that comes out of their mouth, remember the Gong Show where they'd hit the gong? That's what you have to do, because they are not being very truthful. But they want to smear the patriot movement having to do with loving this nation and freedom, right? And the Constitution and everything it should have to do with, because they originally raised up the Patriot Party to usher in socialism and involve gangs in doing their dirty work. And I would have never found this had I not had this dream, first of all, now I think there's much more to this dream that I'll just talk about in a few minutes, but it makes sense now why they're so vehemently against patriotism having to do with the Constitution, having to do with faith, having to do with freedom, having to do with capitalism. It makes sense now, given what they originally raised up the Patriot Party for. And it's interesting that they got gangs involved, because what's flooding across our border right now? You've got men that are more tattooed up, right, than any WWE professional wrestler ever could be. They're coming across the border. They have got gang symbols going every which way to Sunday all over their bodies. Demons have marked their territory, and they're coming in from gangs of military fighting age into this nation. So isn't it interesting that the original meaning, the original roots of the Patriot Party was to work with gangs to usher in socialism? Why do you think the Biden administration is letting all of them flood across the border? For very similar reasons. And this is why now you've had this, clash at the border and this resistance mount to what's coming across the border at Eagle Pass, because now you have this, this patriotic movement of, no, this is our nation rising up, but they need the covenant to go with it. They need to change, right, their hearts towards the Lord and establish that covenant to fully be, right, what God has called that to be. Now, I'm going to show you something interesting, too, that I found, because Donald Trump had proposed, if you remember, a Patriot Party. He hypothetically just put out there the idea of a Patriot Party, right? And he has Make America Great Again. Well, I found a button from when Reagan ran. From when Reagan ran for president. Let's make America great again. So, and this is in 1980. So the Patriot Party dissolves in the mid to late 1970s, right before Reagan comes into play to run for office. So I just thought you would get a kick out of seeing that button, because that popped up in the middle of me searching Patriot Party. This button pops up. Let's make America great again. So this is interesting, because this is kind of like things coming full circle, because this is the time where we have much coming full circle. We do have a Reuters article about this particular thing that was spoken, but here it says, Reuters, February 2nd, 2021, Patriot Party. Trump supporter groups grow rapidly on Facebook. So back then, even in quotations, apparently there were Patriot Party movements that were beginning to grow on Facebook, and basically the Patriot Party would be put back in its rightful column, being it was hijacked by a bunch of psychopaths that wanted to usher socialism into the nation. We should find out who was president in the early 1970s. Could we find that out and put it in the private chat? I have a couple guesses, but I don't want to get it wrong. So I would rather just find out the information, because this may be very telling also. So I would just want to take a look-see at this with all of you. Nixon. Was it Nixon? Okay, everyone's writing Nixon. No? Is it Nixon? We have people in the chat. Nixon, Ford. Let's see. Was it Gerald? Was it Nixon? So everyone's writing Nixon. Richard Nixon, as a U.S. representative and a U.S. senator from California. Oh, how interesting. After successfully ending American fighting in Vietnam and improving international relations with the USSR. Wait a second. Wait a cotton picking minute here, because I just read the end of that statement and something went off in my mind. After successfully ending American fighting in Vietnam. So Nixon ended a war and he improved relations with Russia. Who else ended a war and improved relations with Russia? Donald Trump. What did they do to Nixon after he did these two things? Watergate suddenly happens, right? Watergate suddenly comes about after Nixon does these things in his first term. So what are they going to do? They're going to make sure he has an early exit in his second term. This could be prophetic, real time, because I'm picking up on this. Yes, he was impeached and he resigned, I believe, as president. Donald Trump did the same two things his first term in office. He ended a war and he improved relations with Russia. And then they pulled what they pulled in 2020 after he did those two things. And now they're pulling what they're pulling, trying to implicate him in crimes, just like they tried to implicate Nixon in crimes. They're trying to implicate Trump in crimes. So this in itself is prophetic, and that's when the Patriot Party was formed. It was formed in 1970. This is real-time revelation, guys. I love this when this happens, because this comes real-time and you can see the process. So let's see here. The Patriot Party. Yep. Socialist organization of the early 1970s. So you had the Patriot Party in the early 1970s that were trying to undermine what was going on in the United States of America at the time, and was trying to literally usher in socialism. What are they trying to do while all of this is going on with these accusations and these trials and these lawsuits and they are trying to usher in socialism. They are trying to do the same thing they did in the early 1970s. They're saying Nixon also sent help for Israel in the 6-Day War. Okay, now we've got three glaring similarities. We have the two, Nixon and Trump, ending wars. We have the second similarity, which they improve relations with Russia. And we have the third similarity, they both sent aid to Israel. They both intervened on Israel's behalf when it came to threats against them. Those are three similarities between Nixon and Trump that are glaringly obvious. And Nixon accomplished those two in his first term. Nixon accomplished, I believe, those three in his first term. Trump accomplished those three in his first term. This is by no accident. And yes, people are writing Roger Stone. He was in the mix in this. Roger Stone back then was in the political arena in the middle of this. So this is why you see liberals losing their minds over the Patriot Party, because they originally made that party in order to bring and usher in socialism and use gangs to do it and to do their bidding. So this is why they're losing their mind that the Patriot Party or that movement is going back in its rightful column, having to do with freedom, the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, taking care of our nation, taking care of our military, all those things that the original Patriot Party was against. This has become the antithesis of that. And this is why they're so angry about this, because they have been hiding this dirty little secret for a while now. And I have this dream with this puppy, this young puppy. So that's what leads me to believe too, if it's going to be a party, if this party is going to have something to do, being birthed out of the Patriot movement, having to do with the covenant between God and this nation, it's going to be very young. This is going to be a very young grassroots party that comes up, because this puppy was only 5 months old, needed to be on a leash, needed to be disciplined, needed to be watched, needed to be cared for. But that puppy was now covenant when it was once Patriot Party. And the fact you're dealing either with a shepherd Labrador Retriever, or a shepherd or a Labrador Retriever Border Collie mix gives a picture of everything going on right now. You've got what's going on at the border, right? You've got a candidate now after Super Tuesday of German and Scottish descent, Donald Trump, now who doesn't have any more opponents on the ballot, shall we say. And we also have the fact that this puppy was about 5 months old when back in October, Kevin McCarthy was suddenly removed from the House, and I gave the word from the Lord on Yom Kippur, warning him if he didn't choose a foundation of righteousness in this hour, he was going to lose his seat. And I gave that on Yom Kippur, September 25th, 2023. He loses his seat in early October, and Speaker Johnson ultimately, who was not necessarily in the running to begin with, ends up being put in that position out of Louisiana. So, and the Lord, with animals. So it's interesting that the Lord chose, a little puppy, a little black puppy. Now, the color of the puppy may have something to do that arises too with a certain ethnic group in our nation, and wanting that patriotism and that covenant reestablished. So just keep that in mind, that the color of that puppy may be equally as important as what it is, meaning a black lab border collie or a black lab German shepherd. Okay, both have significance, prophetic significance in the sight of what's happening right now in the nation, because we need to regain possession of the nation. We need to regain possession of the border. That's what Labrador Retrievers do. They go and retrieve and regain possession of what they've been sent out to get. We need to regain possession of our court system, of our schools, of our laws, of the way the church should be operating in the United States of America. So it's and we have a black lab, golden retriever mix named Missy. You see her come in a lot, right? She's all black. Missy's face, that was the face of the puppy, except much younger. And the puppy had much longer hair and the floppy ears of a shepherd or collie, a border collie that they tend to have. So all of this really gives a picture of what's happening in the nation, but what needs to be birthed now out of this patriot movement that now has been redeemed, because this Patriot Party did not start off as a good thing for America. Now it is being redeemed in the midst of this. But in order to be fully redeemed, it has to come into covenant with Almighty God, and that covenant has to be reestablished. But I think this may be pointing to at a rise of another party that is coming in this nation that is going to divide and drop a plumb line right between the Democrats and the Republicans. A rise of a new party. I think this is pointing at this also. And it's going to be very young. It's going to be a very young movement, because that puppy was very young. And so just keep these things in mind, because I think we're only scratching the surface with this. And over the next, course of how many months do we have left? 9 months in the year we have left. Some things may come more to light and come more into focus, having to do with this dream, and certain events may happen where we may see this, or even into 2025 and into 2028. So I would keep that in mind, because here, I'll put this up because I just happened to see this person write this. GCR, covenant means with God, means shepherd, got to teach it. Black robe regiment. She's saying black coat regiment, but black robe regiment. The black robe regiment was the pastors and religious leaders that basically stood up to the King of England and rallied the people to fight against tyranny. And the King of England feared them more than he feared the generals and politicians. In fact, he sent assassins out to try to harm them, because because they had the anointing of God on them. They were powerful in what they were saying, and it was affecting the war. and the King of England knew it. So I believe we're just scratching the surface here, like I said, but we really need to take all of this into account, pray, test the spirit. We're going to put this up on the blog, on the ministry blog, on arkofgrace.org. But yeah, I definitely think some more revelation is going to come about this dream. I am expecting it. I am expecting it to come, because this